Hello SFCC community. Today I'm in Chicago to attend to Salesforce Connections event, and today I am with Edwin Romero, which is SEO independent SEO consultant. He's an expert on SEO and on Commerce Cloud, and we are here together to ask some questions. So hi Edwin.
Hey Maxime, great to meet you, great to be here. I really appreciate you carving out the time. Hope you can enjoy not just Connections but also Chicago. And thank you everyone for watching this video.
So Edwin, please tell me about yourself, introduce yourself, what's your background, what's your experience about SEO, about Commerce Cloud. Yeah. So please.
Well, thank you. So like you mentioned, independent SEO consultant. Been in the field for about 10 years now. I really started honing in on Salesforce Commerce Cloud approximately 6 to 7 years ago, as I joined Lions CG, so Lions Consulting Group, which was an agency that kind of built up these Commerce Cloud sites, these e-com websites. That's when I was first introduced to Commerce Cloud. I remember my manager at the time just told me, hey, we need to launch this site. Can you launch it? And I looked at the documentation and I was just like, whoa, what is all this? So since then though, I've been a part of approximately 200 migration projects, migrations being a niche of mine. And it's been fun. I really do enjoy Commerce Cloud and all the brands that come with it.
Yeah, that's a lot of projects.
It's a lot of projects. Yeah, it's a lot of projects,
yeah.
But all really good experience.
Nice. Do you have mentors? So how have they helped you in your career?
Sure, I have mentors for my SEO. I guess I have SEO mentors. One of them being Taylor Brennan, who was my manager at the time, at my time during Lions CG. Just a great all-around guy. He's just really supportive and ultimately kind of helped me navigate Commerce Cloud and ultimately how to contribute to conversations around SEO with Commerce Cloud and ultimately be a better SEOer in general. I would say he's one of my biggest mentors.
Nice. So he was working on Commerce Cloud?
He was working on Commerce Cloud, yeah.
Since how many years?
I think he was on it for maybe 3 years. I'm not sure.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, it was a while. And then he moved on from Lions CG, which was acquired by CAP, to Neil Patel Digital, so NPD, which is a pretty big SEO agency, as their SEO director.
Okay, nice. What do you like and dislike the most about your work?
I love educating. So I love helping foster growth, helping individuals grow into the best versions of themselves, and that, for me, it's done through education, making sure that not only individuals are aware of up-to-date best practices in SEO, but are more easily able to navigate Commerce Cloud. What I don't dislike about what I dislike about the work is a lot of egos. You know, when individuals they have this kind of this I know what's best in the history of ever kind of mentality. And I'll give you an example. So I worked on a project once where I was trying to walk through my client contact at the time on how to navigate SEO features in Commerce Cloud. And at the time, she didn't really want to hear it. She referenced a lot of dated SEO documentation on best practices that didn't necessarily apply to the website that we were building. And all that ended up doing was more email communication, meaning more hours that are being burned from a lot of people, from project managers, developers, my time, their time. And in a case like that, where all it really could have helped is just some downtime to listen and talk it through, we spent a lot more time just trying to resolve things that probably could have been resolved earlier.
So she was SEO consultant?
She was the SEO contact.
SEO contact, but she didn't know anything about Commerce Cloud?
I think she didn't know anything about Commerce Cloud, and I think maybe she had about a year or two's experience in SEO in general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was kind of a rough relationship. It's okay. We got through it. We launched the site. We were okay afterward.
I see.
Mhm.
So as you may know, I'm a freelancer too, and I know Commerce Cloud is a very little world, um, and it's kind of easy to find new contracts. Is that the same thing for you as an SEO consultant on Commerce Cloud?
The dynamic is a little bit more different. I lean really heavily on relationships I've built through over the years. So whether that be on the client side, the brand side, or contacts that I've made through Lion CG which then gone into different agencies. But it's somewhat similar in that, you build a relationship, you have credibility, which is great, and ultimately you move on how you come to terms with how you want the relationship to go. In some cases, you can be the migration partner, which is essentially one that helps build up your website and applies SEO best practices. In my case, I help make sure a new website has SEO best practices in mind. And once you launch that, there's post-launch, of course, but then you get to reassess what the relationship looks like thereafter. It can be a strategic relationship where you get to basically work alongside the partner or your client, the development team, and make sure that best practices apply to SEO strategy. And then honestly, that the website includes SEO best practices or includes a viable strategy to gathering, viable traffic.
Yeah, but so can you get new contracts easily?
Wow.
That's why.
So it depends. I would say it really depends on the relationships you're leaning on.
Okay.
I think if you're leaning on relationships with agencies that build up or that build these websites, I think that's a little bit more easy to maintain these contracts. But if you're trying to tap into brand managers or marketing managers to build a contract, it's a little bit more difficult because, for one, you need a foot in the door. You need to have an in with these organizations, so then you can establish a contract or an actual relationship with them. So it really depends on who you're going after. Okay. On top of that, you're also competing against all the SEOers that exist out there. There are only a handful. I've only met a handful of Commerce Cloud SEOers, so SEOers that know how to navigate Commerce Cloud. There aren't that many of us, but there is just an abundance of SEOers in general. Now, these can vary. These can vary from those that specialize in content, those that specialize in technical SEO, offsite SEO, and in a way, you're competing with them. And in some other ways, they already have a relationship with a specific brand. So you see, it becomes a little more difficult to be an SEO partner for a Commerce Cloud brand when they already have an SEO partner.
Yes, of course. Okay. Why and how did you choose Salesforce Commerce Cloud to work with?
So I fell into it about 7 years ago. I was working at an agency, a creative agency, and I didn't love it. So I quit. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to work here, and I didn't have a job lined up, but I was really enjoying, like my time off. I was really happy, and then I started interviewing at places, and I got a call back from Lion CG, that was an e-commerce consulting firm, and they asked if eventually that worked out really well, and then I found out that you just don't do any regular SEO. You do SEO for these three platforms, which at the time was Demandware, which is now Salesforce Commerce Cloud, Magento, I think now they do Magento 2, and SAP, which was Hybris, which is now I think SAP Hybris. So this was my introduction to the e-com world, and I've really enjoyed it. Now I think 95 to 98% of my migrations have been on Commerce Cloud, and I really do enjoy it. It's a ton of fun. The brands are really great. They're not small enough. They're not small to the point where, there are a ton of limitations, but they're not big enough where those limitations still exist. It's just kind of like in a really good sweet spot.
Okay. Nice. I fell into it 7 years ago. Yeah, it was for Itelios.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting to start developing on Commerce Cloud. But for our developers it was very closed, and now it's more open. So yeah, that's better today.
Yeah,
There is more and more developers since it has been bought by Salesforce.
it is it is very closed off, and even now there is documentation, which is great. I think they're putting more of a focus on making sure that whoever works in Commerce Cloud knows how to navigate it. When I started, it was, remember I said, like, my manager at the time told me to just get started on migration and just handed me a link, and I had to figure out the rest on my own. But nowadays you have a ton of great community.
Yes.
I mean, you have LinkedIn groups, you have Slack.
Yeah.
So there is a nice community behind you.
Yeah, true. Why do you think we don't see more content about SEO on SFCC?
I think the limitation.
We don't see a lot of content about SEO.
No, I think the limitation is the accessibility. You know, if we talk about the documentation that exists for WordPress SEO best practices, Shopify SEO best practices, it comes down to how easily those platforms are to access. You know, I can go right now after our conversation and begin building a Shopify site, no problem. But I'm not able to do the same thing with a Commerce Cloud site. You know, I need a team behind me, and I think with that, it limits my access to those capabilities and understanding how to navigate. And with that, a lot of people don't really talk about it. A lot of people don't write content around it.
That's hard to learn.
Yeah, it's hard to learn. And I will say this: I do have an SEO guide that I think it's pretty good. I've gotten some pretty good feedback, but it covers off a lot of the questions that a lot of SEOers have around what to implement and what you can't implement. And that alone, the feedback I've gotten and the people that have reached out to me, it's just a testament to how much people are actually craving this type of content.
So, did you get feedbacks from non-technical people? I mean, maybe from brands or agencies?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Nice.
I got feedback from agencies, from on the brand side. I had someone from Salesforce also reach out to me and, and give
That's
me
really nice.
kudos. Yeah, they were really happy with it. So it was fun. It was really cool. So Slight Deviation, I created it because the pandemic started, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do something to secure some work. So I invested all my time and energy into building out this guide, and it turned out to be really well.
How much time did you spend to create this guide?
It must have been maybe a month or two.
Wow.
Like after
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, after work, I would go straight to typing things out, getting screenshots.
Yeah, that's very long.
Yeah.
And it's divided in 12 chapters, right?
Yeah, I think it's about 12 chapters, roughly. It used to be one long post. It must have been, it was a really long post. But then I divided it up because it goes back to SEO. Like, the more pages you have, the more keywords you would rank for, and traffic has been going really well.
Okay, but that's nice to divide it into chapters.
Oh, yeah. So
that's more friendly.
More digestible, easier to navigate.
More digestible. Yeah. Me, as a Commerce Cloud guy, I've read a lot of blog posts saying that SEO is really important into Commerce Cloud, and it has been thought for SEO. It seems that SEO is very powerful on Commerce Cloud comparing to other e-commerce platforms like Shopify, WooCommerce, or PrestaShop. Is this true? What do you think about that?
If it's as powerful as Shopify or WordPress, is that the question?
Yeah.
I think it can be. I think it depends on the brand and what your goals are. I really do.
Isn't it more powerful?
It comes down to what your goals are and what your product offering is. I feel. If you have a bad site, it's a bad site, no matter if you're on Commerce Cloud, if you're on Shopify, if you're on WordPress. But if you offer a pretty great user experience that satisfies what a user is looking for, it can be totally amazing. I think Commerce Cloud has the capabilities to be can serve up an amazing site, and I've seen it. I've seen Commerce Cloud sites next to Shopify sites. One would rank above the other and vice versa. So it's really dependent. It's really dependent on a number of things. It comes back to SEO fundamentals and best practices. How is a website optimized for what users are looking for? What's being optimized? Is it just page titles and meta descriptions? Is it content? Is it that the site has an authoritative background? Is it older? Is it does it more backlinks? So there's a lot that goes into which one performs better.
So it's not about the solution?
Not necessarily, no.
Oh, really? I've read a lot of things about that.
Well, like, you can have a super fast experience, which Shopify is. I think Shopify might be in some cases very quicker than Commerce Cloud. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but none of that matters if your experience isn't great. If your PLPs are very thin, there's really no products, if there's no content, if the page titles aren't optimized, the solutions don't matter if you're not serving up a good experience.
Okay. I was not expecting this answer.
I'm sorry. I threw you a curveball. Well, I mean, that said, I mean, you can. I'm not saying Commerce Cloud is the wrong solution. I wouldn't be in the space if Commerce Cloud was a wrong solution.
Yeah,
I think it's a phenomenal solution for various brands, and but I think it comes down to, more than anything, in regards to SEO, it comes down to what's the best solution for users. Is it the technology that's driving the experience, or is it just the experience in general, despite the solution?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you tell me about the most difficult or frequent challenges you face in your role as an SEO consultant?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges lie within advocating for SEO, or finding advocates for SEO, essentially those that can support your SEO efforts. Because there is some misconceptions around what SEO actually is, I think the value it can provide is also downplayed. So you have to reinforce the fact that, hey, SEO can provide this value for your brand and for your websites and your users. But you have to drive that to the clients, to the developers that you're working with, to the project managers, anyone and everyone that's on your team. Often SEO is one of those things where it's something new to a team, so they don't really know when to loop you in. So they're always kind of, well, do we loop in SEO? Do we not? Do we have budget? Should we allocate budget? So trying to build those relationships and making sure that you have a voice in the grander scheme and the grander web ecosystem is so significant. It's a challenge.
SEO is not a big part of the budget?
I wish. Oh, I wish. Sometimes it comes down to the wire when we're talking about migration. It's not uncommon for brands to reach out to me and say, hey, you know what, we're launching a website in about 3 weeks. You think you can optimize the site? Well, not necessarily. We have to figure out what the strategy will look like. Making sure that the new site doesn't decline in performance, and that we build things. I say redirects because it's one of the biggest things that you can do. It's one of the biggest things I've seen cripple a site, if I'm being honest. We pay so much attention to that as SEOers. But if you have a really complex website and you give an SEO only 3 weeks to figure out a solution or a strategy, that's pretty tough. That's a challenge. But a part of that comes down to finding advocates for your SEO initiatives, SEO campaigns. So what I think, something I found really interesting is building those relationships really early on, and just asking people to keep an ear out. If you think it affects SEO, just loop me in. Let me know. Okay. I can assess. And if it doesn't, that's great. I'll tell you. You know what? This doesn't affect SEO. Mm-hmm. Have at it.
Maybe they didn't know.
It's true. Maybe they don't know.
Yeah.
But it costs money, right? It costs you a ton of money if you don't loop in SEO, if you didn't know. The cool thing about that is, though, if you start building up this advocacy for SEO within your team, after a while, you're not so much actively trying to hear, okay, does that affect SEO? Okay, does that affect SEO? After a while, you have developers, you have project managers, you have your client team raising their hands saying, should SEO be involved in these conversations? And now they're advocating for you. So it's a challenge, But once you have that advocacy, the rewards are pretty hefty.
Developers care about SEO when developing?
Not always. And it's out of developers' wheelhouse. I don't expect developers to be as committed to SEO as I am. But some SEO developers, after kind of being in a relationship with an SEO on a regular basis, they really start understanding why it's significant. I think a part of that also is the fact that as you build a solution, the last thing you want to do is regress, is take steps back. But if I'm involved in as an SEO, late stages, and I see something that's already been built, I'm going to request that the solution be regressed. That's not a lot of fun. I mean, as a developer, you don't want to be told, hey, what you did isn't right.
Yeah.
So I think after a while, you start understanding, okay, maybe we should, as a developer, I should start looping in SEO.
Oh, okay. Because as a developer, I got a ticket which is about SEO, and I just work on this ticket, and it's I mean, we fix some SEO issues, but it's not coming from us as developers. It's coming from project managers and lead developers or architects, and we don't know, or sometimes we talk directly to SEO agency, but we are not developing something for SEO into other tasks.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm clear.
No, I get you. I totally understand what you're saying, and it makes sense. Because when I have an issue, I file a ticket.
Yeah.
Where's the ticket go? It goes to you. You know, and you follow through with the ticket. But a part of it is like understanding SEO best practices. Like I don't expect you or any developer to understand SEO best practices. That's where my job comes in.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know if you've ever faced this, but sometimes SEOs do not know how to write a good ticket. The ticket says fix schema.
Yeah.
Well, what about the schema? So it's good to have not just even an SEO that's familiar with Commerce Cloud, but it's good to have an SEO that can navigate kind of these enterprise level solutions to get an SEO initiative pushed through.
Okay. How much SEO do you need to know to start working on Commerce Cloud? So is this possible to start an SEO career with Commerce Cloud as a first solution?
Yeah, I think it's totally possible.
Okay.
I really think it is. I've seen the best success happen when the SEO is at the really early stages of their career or intermediate. I think it gets a little tougher as an SEO becomes way more seasoned and advanced. And when you're a beginner and intermediate, you're just soaking up so much information. I feel like you can weave through recommendations and configurations and all that pretty easily. But when you're a seasoned SEOer, you probably already have a niche. You probably already have a level of expertise in SEO. Maybe it's not Commerce Cloud. Maybe it's technical SEO. Maybe it's a specific part of content SEO. So it becomes a little tougher to kind of take a break and say, let me learn everything I can about Commerce Cloud when you have a whole career behind you. It's tougher. But as you begin SEO, and even into your intermediate, I think there's a ton of great potential to pick up on the best practices for configuring Commerce Cloud around SEO. Not to say seasoned SEOers can't learn, but I've seen super great success with beginners and intermediate.
Okay, is that hard to learn Commerce Cloud on SEO?
I think it can be, because I think a lot of us as SEOers and digital marketers in general, we have access to the WordPresses, we have access to the Shopify, so you can go ahead and build a WordPress and Shopify overnight, a Shopify site overnight if you wanted to. But you really can't do that with Commerce Cloud. On top of that, it's not the Commerce Cloud Business Manager portal isn't really geared towards I mean, it has an SEO portal, but it's tough to kind of navigate where you update page titles.
It's not
and
very easy.
Yeah, it's not as intuitive.
Yeah, not intuitive. Yeah. We agree on that.
Yeah.
On the business manager is not intuitive.
Yeah.
Have you already worked on a B2B site? And is SEO required for B2B websites?
So I've never really worked on a B2B site, but I know there's a ton of great value for brands who are B2B that can benefit from SEO, from the organic search space. Because if we think about it, you know, B2B prospects, they have their own purchasing journey. They have their own purchasing funnel. And what you want to do is make sure you match the right content to a user based on where they are in their buying journey. And to do that, you have to optimize you have to build out the right content and optimize it so that it speaks to them, so it's found. It's different from B2C, but I think for the most part, the end goal is to satisfy the user request by the proper user experience.
Okay, so it's very important too for B2B?
I would say so. Yeah,
Okay.
I would say so. In some cases, it might not even matter, but I've seen there's always really great potential with organic search for B2B brands.
Okay, I am surprised of this answer. I was thinking about only B2C commerce sites, but also for B2B. Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
How much time do you spend on a SFCC project? Do you work a lot of before the go live, after the go live? What's the shortest period? Maybe both. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's really totally dependent on what the client needs. If a client requests that I support them on the migration front, so moving them from their legacy platform on over to their new Commerce Cloud platform, that can really range. Ideally, I like to be at the onset of the engagement, you know, when discoveries start taking place, even before then, when sales meetings and RFPing takes place. That can range from anywhere between 9 to 12 months, which is a pretty good runway, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
9 to 12 months?
Yeah.
For one project?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It would, I mean, granted, as SEOers, we're not going to be involved 40 hours full-time or however often it takes for one individual to be full-time.
Okay.
It might just be only a snippet of that. It might be anywhere between 12 to 18 hours. It's really dependent on the brand. But for me, it's not uncommon to be involved approximately 12 hours for a migration project a week. That's going to ebb and flow, go up and down, depending on the phase of the project. Because discoveries take a long time. You want to figure out, well, what does the client want? What solutions do we have to meet that criteria? How do we build our requirements? How do we start tracking them? And then it might go quiet for a little bit as you're getting this information. And honestly, there's some periods where there's very little for you to do because the site is being pulled together. You might have the requirements, but there might be less for you to do. So that's migration. You know, up until launch, it might ramp up again and then calm down. And then you go into post-launch where you're fixing things that, that need to be fixed. And then that leads into strategic, more long-term engagements. What you really want from your website now that you're out of this huge migration endeavor. And that's more of, well, let's look at search trends. What is our performance telling us? And what opportunity exists out there, and how can we marry that together? Now, this isn't necessarily tied to a migration project, but it might be tied to more around content, might be more tied to technical SEO. It really does depend. A strategic relationship may vary. It can be ongoing, it can be cyclical, it can range anywhere for a couple of months to a few months. In some cases, I've been brought onto a project to clean up. So brands launch or they migrate their site without SEO and the performance tanks. So they come to me and they ask, well, what's wrong? What's going on? I thought we were okay. By and large, I'm not saying it's always, but sometimes often it's tied to redirects. They implemented redirects incorrectly, they didn't implement redirects at all, or sometimes,
really? Is that possible?
It's very possible.
But on Commerce Cloud projects, it's a lot of luxury brands, and they care about SEO, about redirection, about migrations.
Well,
So that's surprising.
so it comes back to why redirects are important for SEO. So the reason why redirects are important is because URL A has search engine authority. It carries weight, and it no longer serves a purpose in the news site, or at least that's what we think. And so we decide, you know what, URL A, we'll leave it dead. So there's nothing there new. There's nothing we can do. But URL B, where it should have gone, it's like a brand new web page, despite the fact that it had a relationship with URL A. But there's nothing tying that relationship together through the redirect. So what ends up happening is brands think that a site section we no longer need, but it plays a huge role into how they perform on the new site. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is there are sometimes brands don't necessarily configure things like metadata. So their page titles and meta descriptions. They might leave it templated, or they may not even have a look at it. So they leave it as is. Sometimes it's reflective of their category name, category ID, not really a strategy behind them. And then that also contributes to declining performance.
Oh wow, that's really surprising.
I know it's pretty wild stuff, and it happens way more often than I think a lot of brands like to talk
Really?
about. Oh yeah. It's
Because of budget?
that's one thing. Yeah, that's definitely that's a huge contributing factor, because once you carve out an entire budget for a project, because sometimes they can run between maybe $1 to $2 $3 million. SEO is one of those things that's the first on the chopping block, first thing to get cut off. We don't need SEO because we have a digital marketing manager that can help manage it for us. But the digital marketing manager is not only managing SEO, they're managing social, they're managing paid search, they're managing content, they're managing a lot.
Yeah.
So it's easy for SEO
different.
to drop. Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Salesforce is improving Commerce Cloud every day for with new features for developers, for brands, and everyone. What do you think about SFCC evolution on SEO?
Yeah, it's really come a long way since I've begun my experience with Demandware.
Mm-hmm.
When I started with Demandware, it was kind of one of those things where you figured it out as you went along. There wasn't really any robust documentation, but now they basically opened it up to communities. They have Trailblazer. They have the Slack group, the unofficial Slack group, but they also have LinkedIn groups, which is awesome. So it's great that they're open to having this documentation and this growing knowledge base out there.
Do you have specific groups for SEO? Maybe channels about SEO on Slack?
Oh yeah, there is an SEO channel, an unofficial,
with a lot of SEOers.
For the most part, I'm not sure how many are SEOers, but they're probably brand merchandisers and SEO or marketing managers on the client side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but as far as it's evolved, I think one of the biggest evolutions that they that they made was around the page meta tag rules. So I'm not sure. Are you familiar with page meta tag rules?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really do enjoy page meta tag rules.
That's limited.
It's limited?
Yes. Yes, we sometimes we have to develop some regular expression to replace some things because it's not. Yeah, it's too limited.
I understand that, but I think from an SEO perspective, what we were looking for.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah, for what we were looking for was these templated, scalable approaches to metadata, which before page meta tag rules, we had to go into each category and product attribute, update, go to the next one, update. It was very tedious, but then they launched it, so now we can handle it with more scalability. I think you can also do pretty interesting stuff. Are you familiar with open graph tags?
No.
So open graph tags, if you're familiar with page titles and mention,
it's a SEO tool, or
no.
It's about Commerce Cloud.
No, these are HTML tags. So I believe they call it HTML attributes.
Okay.
That are specific to social. So open graph tags are great for Facebook and I think maybe LinkedIn, but you can build these social meta tags more fluidly, and you can do it with scale in mind. I like that a lot. I think an area that I'm not, I'm not gonna say I'm not a fan of, but I'm not as well adept is page designer. I know a lot of merchandisers love page designer.
Yes.
But
That's very intuitive.
You think it's very intuitive?
Yes, for merchants, for merchandiser. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
They love drag and drop
and that's great. That's great. I'm not sure if you're familiar with WordPress, but they have something very similar. You drag and drop and you build a web page.
That's nice.
It really is. But from an SEO perspective,
the Salesforce UI also.
Yeah.
So that's better for those who know Salesforce ecosystem before Commerce Cloud.
Interesting. I mean, there's benefit to it, like, and I'm just one perspective, so a lot of it then falls on me to learn. I think for the most part, though, the community itself is super helpful, and even if you find the right Salesforce contact, they can be very helpful as well.
Okay. As a developer, I know that the certification can be a sensitive topic. What do you think about certification for SEO consultants? Is that useful for Commerce Cloud?
For Commerce Cloud, I think because it's so specific, there may be benefit. Yeah, I would say there's benefit because we're talking about settings and features that are not intuitive to identify and navigate through. And because I've had people reach out to me and ask certain questions on how to accomplish certain things in Salesforce Commerce Cloud for SEO, again, it goes to show that there's a thirst for it. Now, have it being a requirement to work on a Commerce Cloud site, I don't think so. I only say that because SEO is so dependent on keeping up with best practices, and it changes so regularly. I wouldn't even, so there are a couple of SEO certifications out there. Moz is one, SEMrush I think offers one, HubSpot offers some. They're great at fundamental, getting you introduced to some of the fundamental best practices, some of the foundational stuff. But as an employer, I wouldn't say you need a Moz SEO certification to work on my team. You certainly don't need that because you learn as you go, especially with SEO. A lot of people may not know it, but a lot of it is experimentation, figuring out what works and what doesn't. Now, with that said, on a Salesforce Commerce Cloud SEO certification, I think would only be best to understand how to navigate through Commerce Cloud for SEO settings, but it doesn't tell you, he's ready to apply best practices or they're ready to apply experimentations to the entire site for SEO. It doesn't do that. So I think it's beneficial to a degree.
Okay. So does any customer clients ask you to be certified? No, never? Okay.
No, and I think it's important to note here, what I do as we engage in a new SEO project is I ask a client or brand, do you want to have an SEO walkthrough of all SEO features in Commerce Cloud? More often than not, they say yes. And it proves to be extraordinarily beneficial because we get to see, hey, what's out of the box for SEO settings and what's a customization. They may have seen something that's very, very cool on a competitor's site that they want to implement on their site, but they may not understand that that's beyond the out-of-the-box experience within Commerce Cloud. It might be a customization. So it's good to level set those expectations.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Edwin, you live in Chicago and you are not attending to Connections event. Why?
Well, about 7 to 8 months ago, I left my role as SEO manager at Capgemini, which had acquired LionCG, and went independent SEO consulting. So with that, I just wanted to be budget, conscious, and I'm not saying that Commerce Cloud, the Connections event was super expensive, but as your own business owner, as you imagine,
it is expensive.
Well, yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything, Maxime, but I'm just trying to make sure that I have like a pretty good on budget. You know, just as your own business owner, you just kind of pick and choose what you pay for. So.
Yeah. Okay. I understand. Have you already attended to any connections or any other Salesforce event before?
No, I haven't. And the community sounds really great. The folks that are attending, there are a lot of folks from my past, so I really want to attend in the near term. In the past, it's been mostly account managers, sales reps, or business development leads. Maybe some developers, but it's been mostly those that build relationships with clients and whatnot.
Yeah, even for developers, we're not. We don't go a lot to these events. I mean, if you are not independent, that's not very common to come from agencies or. Yes, if you are not showing products or presenting something, you are not going to any event.
I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. Are you looking forward to anything? Any cool products? Any cool presentations?
No.
No. Nothing
just
specific?
here for networking and learn some get new skills and learn something new about Commerce Cloud.
Well, that should be fun. No matter what, that should be fun.
Yeah, I was here for TDX. I was at San Francisco, but there were not so many Commerce Cloud things. Yeah. So that's why I'm here today.
Well, I think it's going to be very valuable. I think us just having this conversation, I think that's valuable, building this relationship.
Yeah, sure.
I'm meeting up a couple of other individuals later this week. I don't know if you know Tomas from Rhino Inquisitor. Yeah. We're trying to get together for coffee, and I'm pretty excited about that. I mean, just to have a person like that who puts out so much information around Commerce Cloud, it's gonna be great just to hang out and talk to him. Yeah.
He's making a great job with his blog Rhino Inquisitor.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you. It's just so much. I mean, like, I think you know about like how it was in Demandware back in the Demandware days. I think Tomas, I'm not sure how far he goes back, but if he's aware, there's a reason why there's so much value in what Tomas does. It only enhances the community.
Yes, and it's very easy to understand. That's very very good blog.
Yeah,
yes.
I agree.
So, except Thomas and me, are you? Will you meet new people or expecting to meet other types of people coming from all around the world? Yeah,
I'm hoping so. There's an event happening on Wednesday, which I'm really excited about. What's it called? The International. It starts tomorrow. International Connections. There's another subsequent event. I believe so. And that's.
Oh wow. And that's. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's open to.
That's 8 and
9. Maybe it's.
Maybe
I'm pretty sure it's tomorrow.
Maybe there is something tomorrow, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I will check.
Tomas sent it to me, so if there's nothing happening, I'm pointing the finger at Tomas. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm meeting some folks up from coming in from New York, and I'm honestly looking forward to in some of those like free events. I'm looking forward to just kind of meeting up people from my past. You know, I've been in this space for about 6 years, so I've made some pretty good contacts, and it'd be nice to see some familiar faces.
Yeah. Okay. So you already saw them?
No, this week.
Oh, this week you will see? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Edwin, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming here for this interview. And maybe you have a last word to say to the SFCC community.
Yeah, definitely. First, thank you for having me. I'm sure you're really jet lag coming in from France.
Yes.
To the folks out there, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for taking the time. Any comments, questions, please feel free to reach out. If you're an SEOer just getting started in Commerce Cloud and feeling stuck, it's okay. You're not alone. But you know, you have a community behind you.
And you have a good guide. What is the site? The website?
It's at Edwin Dan Romero, so EDWINDANROMERO.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a Salesforce Commerce Cloud guide there, put it together a couple years ago, and it's
very complete.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for this great guide.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliments. I've gotten some good feedback. But if you or anyone wants to reach out, has further feedback, I'd love to expand upon it.
Okay, nice. Thank you, Edwin. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.